Nico.
Yo,
Hey, we're back, mate. How are you?
we are back for second episode of season two.
Yeah, season 2, episode 2. Sounds professional, doesn't it?
Kind of does. We've made it far. Apparently, podcasts die out around the 11, 12, 13 episode mark.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, so we've beaten that threshold. What does that mean?
Means we're through the honeymoon phase and we're going strong. We've got a good foundation. We've got a
Through the
good thing
honey,
going here, buddy.
we're through the honeymoon phase. Now we know each other. We know each other's flaws and drawbacks and everything, and we've still decided to be together, which is beautiful.
It's so beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
What have you been up to the last week, mate? Why don't you tell people you messaged me yesterday that you were having a beautiful meditation, which got me very jealous. I might do it today myself, actually. But what were you up to?
All right, so you and I are both rather large Tool fans, Tool
And,
the
and
band.
and I reckon, like, if we've got a demographic of males aged 35 to 55, it's safe to assume they're probably a Tool fan.
Yes, yes. Um, and so Wings and Maria Part 2 is probably my favourite Tool song. It's about Maynard's mum dying of cancer. So Marie was his mum, so Part 1 and Part 2 are a tribute to her. But I love listening to Part 2 because the bass line, Justin Chancellor's bass line, it's so disciplined. And have you seen the Vic Firth video of Danny Carey playing Numa, the new song?
Oh, yeah, I've watched it about 10
Yeah.
times, yeah.
So I was watching some reactions, like music teachers and drummers and guitarists watching that video and their reactions to it.
Yeah.
And one bloke said something really interesting. He's like, Danny Carey's so disciplined, and I went, the whole band is so disciplined. Like Justin Chancellor's playing just this very simple doodle 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 for minutes on end, and then he switches it, and it's like it's a hypnotic. It
It's
puts you into
so
a
it's
trance.
so hypnotic, yeah.
It puts you in a because if you really zoom your focus in, and if you really hone in on the bass line for the whole song, it will alter your state of consciousness.
Yeah.
Whether that's intentional or not on his behalf, I don't know, but it just happens. So I love sitting there. I was sitting in my car, eyes closed, just listening to it full whack on the stezza. And I just use it as a meditation. And visually, I've never been into chakras. I don't know the colors of chakras or anything, but when I meditate, I always have this chakra cleansing thing. And I've got this golden orb that passes through all my chakras and opens them up, and this light just starts emitting from. I know where they are, but
Yeah.
and so Tool is cleaning my chakra, and my energy and everything. And so I did that yesterday morning, and then saw some clients, and I had the afternoon off, so I went home and I thought it was a drizzly day, in Victoria, and I thought, gonna get the fire cranking, and I'm gonna listen to the whole Tool discography, and just with headphones on, because you hear things that you never hear just normally. And I'm gonna have a couple of gin and tonics. And so I waited for the minute hand to click past midday, and cracked a G&T, and got my couch set up, and just away I went, and it was fucking amazing. Like, I was just, in and out, and just in this space, and I just felt warm and fuzzy, and it was just a very soul feeding afternoon.
It sounds like the most beautiful meditation. I reckon there's a few guys listening going, all right, I've got my day sorted.
I can highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Because especially with headphones, and I love listening to music with headphones, and I know you do, but you can just pick up things. It's like listening to an album for the first time. You just come in, it shifts from here, especially with Tool and the way it's mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did the exact thing with when their new album came out. It just happened to coincide with one of my weeks away where I go off in solitude by myself. And very similar. I was out in the woods in the middle of nowhere by myself, and started the fire, bought the new album the day that it came out, and I'm like, okay. And just,
This is me.
Just me and the music. I just sat there
Yeah.
and listened, and it's it's very beautiful. Very it pulls you really into your body, and you do get a lot of visuals. It was funny when you said about the chakra thing. It just made me think when I've spoken before about that when I sort of had my big wake up moment and all that, and during this experience that I had, which many things happened. One of them, and I was a guy who'd never anything spiritual, none of that stuff. I had no knowledge, and it was so funny because at one point in the session, I was literally feeling these different parts on my body. And I'm like, oh, I feel like there's just energy pouring in to like here, 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 and here. Anyway, I just sort of said it, and it was happening for ages. And then afterwards, I remember I sort of came out of the trance or the session, and I said to Melissa, I'm like, oh, that was that energy thing. She goes, oh, that was your chakras. And I remember I'm like, the fuck are chakras?
I had sharks.
But sharks were diving into me. It was really interesting because I had no prior knowledge. I had no idea. I'd never heard that word before, and let alone knew anything about them. Yet I had this experience where energy was pouring into these specific centers throughout my body. So
I had the same thing with, when I spent a year sort of deconstructing and then reconstructing myself, and CBT was a big part of that. And CBT is heavily influenced in Buddhist philosophy and Stoicism. And it was amazing at how much it resonated with me, and I already knew it. And I even wrote like this little story, I guess, called The Accidental Buddhist, because I felt I was practicing a lot of it without knowing that it had even existed. And I don't know if that's a past life thing or whatever it could be, or this fact that, the theory that we don't learn anything new, we already know everything, and we just peel away layers of ignorance. So I don't know if it was what it was, but I just kept coming across this stuff, and same with the chakras. I'm like, I couldn't tell you one chakra from the other, but all of a sudden, in my meditations, I'm just like the chakra king, and it's like traffic lights going off, and there's shit flying out here, and I'm breaking chains, and it was really good.
yeah, I love it. Oh, that's beautiful, mate. What a beautiful meditation.
So that's me. What are you doing?
I'm great today.
That doesn't look like an Australian timber door behind you.
No, it's not.
No, it looks more tropical.
I don't know if you can see out the window there. Very, very tropical. No, okay, that was useless me doing that then. No, yes, I am in. I'm just putting my charger back in. I am in Koh Samui, which is an island off Thailand. It's part of Thailand. Been here for the last 5 weeks or so. So, me and Melissa had planned. We took our business online at the end of 2019, and with the idea.
So the Centre for Healing, I used to come to your office and we'd record the podcast in person, and so you decided to go digital. We
decided to go digital with the plan of doing that, and also traveling a bit while Tommy, our boy, is young. And this was like before Corona was a thing. It was a little bit prophetic, I think. And so we did that. We decided we were going to come over here, got a 3-month visa, and came over here about 5 weeks ago. Once again, when we came over, everything was sort of just starting with the Corona stuff. There was no restrictions or anything in place. A few flights were starting to be cancelled, but ours weren't. And so we're over here, and we've been in lockdown here for the last little bit. So we're in a place called Chiang Mon, which is up the northeast part of the island. So it's really, really quiet, which is what we want, near a nice beach and all that kind of jazz. So so we're loving it over here. Obviously, it's a bit different to normal because obviously things are in lockdown here. This island itself, I think there's only been 4 or 5 cases, which they've got on top of pretty quick. But obviously they're same rules as the mainland of Thailand. I think there's been quite a few cases in Bangkok, and so we're under the same restrictions here.
Apparently, that was the first case of someone contracting corona from a dead body in Bangkok.
Oh, really?
So don't go touching dead bodies.
No, well, there goes my necrophilia habit.
I know you had a thing for it. Has Koh Samui recovered from when Typhoon Nick came through in the early 2000s?
Look. It looks like it's recovered. The island looks beautiful itself, but the people haven't recovered. There's still You can't say that N word over here.
He who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named. So yeah, I definitely don't tell people that I do a podcast with you. That's for sure. I'll be blacklisted.
I went to Codependency as well for the full moon party, and I was like naked for 3 days.
They're good fun. Yeah, I did one of those.
Yeah. And I guess that's a bit of a segue-ish into the topic today, because that version of me was very unwoke, I suppose. But he was also very happy.
Yeah.
His ignorance.
This is I like talking about this stuff. It's really interesting. Before we get onto the topic, I'm going to tell you about my frog experience. Okay. Right? Because I'm fantastic today because I had a really good night's sleep last night. The 2 nights before that, fucking horrible, mate. Listen to this, right? I took a recording. This was literally just outside my bedroom. Okay, let me know if you can hear this, okay?
All right. Is that Mel snoring?
Mate, it sounds like a tuba that's like off, out of tune. Mate, I tell you, the first time we heard it 2 nights ago, that noise just started up, and we both looked at each other. We were like, "What the fuck is that?" Because it kind of doesn't sound like an animal. Anyway, it carried on all night, and then the next night was even worse. So that noise is just constant from like 8 p.m. till 4:30 a.m. I just couldn't sleep, and went and spoke to Mon, the lady who manages the villas that we're staying in, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's the frogs." We had rain, so the other day it rained. Like, we've been here 5 weeks, not a drop of rain. It's been insane, and so all of a sudden it pissed down all day for a day.
The frogs are out to party.
Yeah. So the frog with the water, the frogs come out to party, and that's like obviously a bloody mating call or something that they're going with. It's a particular type of frog. There's many frogs here, but this is like a big, I don't know, hectic looking thing. Anyway, I tell them yesterday, I'm like, Mon, and her English like isn't great. Like, I have a bit of trouble communicating, but we can get through. And her husband, who works here as well, he's no English at all. And I was speaking to her. I'm like, Mon, I didn't sleep last night. These frogs, like, I don't know. I don't know what I was asking her to do. I didn't really have any solution in mind. I was just trying to vent that I need some sleep. Anyway, she's like laughed at me and went, "Oh yeah, it's the frogs. Don't worry about it." And then said something to her husband in Thai, and I'm like, "Oh, they're just like, oh, he's whinging about the frogs." So I was preparing myself all day for another night of no sleep. I was worried about these frogs. And then it gets to last night. And then, I was telling Melissa, and Melissa's like, "What do you want them to do?" Like, and I was looking up articles of how to get rid of frogs. She was like, you're not going to fucking kill them. Like, and then she goes, they're because they pray every morning to Buddha and everything. She goes, they're Buddhists. They're not going to bloody hurt the frogs, And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. All right, I'll prepare myself for no sleep. So last night comes down. We're having trouble putting Tommy to sleep. So he was crying, and I'm trying to read him a book. And while I'm reading a book, I hear that noise start again. I'm like, about the same time, I'm like, here we go. So just outside my bedroom window, there's this little pond thing. There's a few around, but obviously there must be in there. Anyway, I finished reading this book to Tommy, and I bring him out of the bedroom, and obviously the window to outside's there, and I caught a glimpse of Mon's husband just walking past, but just a glimpse. And your brain's making many assumptions. We try and fill in blanks all the time, and I'm very, very aware of that. But the vision that I saw that he went past, I thought he had a torch on his head and a spear, and I'm like, and I said to myself, and Mel was sitting out there, I'm like, Mel, I just saw Mon's husband with a torch and a spear, but I'm pretty sure I'm just making that up because that's what I want, and plus I'm sleep deprived. Next minute, we see him right at our window with a torch on his head and a spear, and he's fucking killing these frogs, absolutely destroying them. And so Mel's like hands over her mouth, was freaking out. I lost the plot. I was like disturbed and laughing and happy at the same time.
Very conflicted.
Anyway, the noise just stopped. Right?
No shit.
And it was so funny. And we were laying in bed, and I'm sitting there. I couldn't stop laughing for like an hour. I was just giggling because I'm just like, that's just the funniest thing I've ever seen. And so last night, no noises. The frogs were taken care of. So I've had my Buddhist assassin take them out.
Did you see a trail of blood and guts down? Wow. That's maybe they don't consider frogs to be sentient creatures, sentient beings. So it's okay to kill frogs.
They may that type of frog might be a pest here. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, it was a very funny visual, and I slept well last night, so I'm happy. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Sorry, we just had some technical difficulties. Nick's had to change rooms. How are you? Comfy there, Nick? You all right?
I'm good. I'm kicking back.
Would you say that... You go?
Did you develop a British accent in that time it took to rectify the...
Am I speaking British?
You did. You went, all right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, ladies and gents, we're back, geezers. Welcome back to Woke Blokes.
It's like that metanoia again.
Yeah. I don't know. Something must creep in that, I don't know, past life or something. I don't know. But yeah, that internet dropping out really got my goat.
Right. That did get your goat. So that's the weird phrase or expression we're using today. And so the first person to use that, as you were saying earlier, probably would have been, it probably would have happened. Someone in Israel, you were saying, probably would have had their goat stolen.
Yes.
And agitated them. And then it became a metaphor for life. It's like, I remember Yusuf over there. He got really agitated when his goat got stolen. I'm feeling agitated too. Well, that really got my goat. What you did.
It's like they create a strong link between agitation and frustration and getting of the goat, because that would have happened, this initial event, and it created a very strong link. And then maybe a few months later, and I reckon he found the goat. I reckon that the initial event, he ended up getting some resolution and he found the goat. Like it just.
I think someone stole the goat and then they got stoned to death.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus
and he got his goat back. No, Jesus Christ wasn't involved. I know we're in Israel.
We're in Israel, yeah. All right.
May have been at Jesus' time.
So he got his goat back. This guy was stoned to death, the perpetrator. And then maybe a few months later, something else happened, ungoat related. Mm-hmm. And then Yusuf just said to himself, he's like, this is just like the time that someone got my goat, right? And then it started.
It's like they've got my goat again. Oh, this has really got my goat again.
Yeah. And it's something about the G and the G, the got and the goat, that makes it work. You know?
Well, because goats are very.
Can I tell you, it got my llama. You know, it just doesn't work.
No, it rolls off the tongue. It's got my goat.
It's the same. It must be, because now that makes me think of, it really grinds my gears. It's GG again. So it's frustrating and agitation and a G word.
Is grinding my gears just an industrial aged way of saying it got my goat?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm trying to make up a new one now. It really,
grounds my garlic.
It really grabs my garlic.
Well, it's good that he got his goat back, because goats would have been very, in some societies, goats are very important. It's like they're worth the value of a car over here. So
yeah, and this before physical money, they were currency.
Yeah,
bartering. Swap a goat, and if this was his prize goat, the head. Well,
especially like he had his son there that's not too good looking, and there's this girl in the next village who he had the hots for, and the goat was part of the what is it when you?
It's us with a D.
Dowry.
Dowry. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's got this butt ugly son who's just trying to get laid, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of my house, you useless."
Akbar or something.
Yeah. And he's like, right, I'm going to use this goat, and you're going to get married and fuck off out of here. And so it was a double disappointment. He lost his goat, and B, his son was still there. So
yeah, this is no wonder it frustrated him.
Agitated.
All right, I'm glad we sorted that out. Today we are talking about waking up. This podcast is called Woke Blokes, so woke, is a bit of a, we're tongue in cheek, like I'm not really into the hashtag woke stuff, but we are essentially, with our work, tell me if I'm wrong your end, but our work is around waking people up.
Wake me up before you go.
Before you go, before you get my goat go. And so waking up and just becoming conscious. And I think that is a process for everyone, or it's a moment. And I think today it'd be good to talk about maybe what that was like for us, that experience, or what maybe our definition of waking up is.
Well, I told you about Typhoon Nick earlier that blew through Thailand in the early 2000s, and that version of me was very unwoke, I guess you could say. It was not conscious at all. They had no self-awareness, really. It was just seat of the pants, just, which is a bit weird because I was very in the moment a lot. I guess I had a freedom. I said before that version of me was very happy in that sense. And you said you like talking about that because I think the more woke you are, the more you struggle with that happiness because you're always being stretched, or there's always work to do, or there's always. I think it's much harder to feel content as a person who is more aware than that's saying ignorance is bliss. I think that rings very true.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, it's something I think about quite a bit because I was similar to you my whole life. I think the waking up process is just realizing there's us, like our personality, our behaviors, our patterns, and then that's been us our whole life when we're unconscious. And so there's no reference point. We're just acting out and being, somewhat in the moment, sometimes neurotic, whatever it is. And then the waking up moment is realizing, oh, hey, there's something else in here that is watching this personality as if it was watching a movie or watching something else. So it's like I've got a reference point now, which is fantastic because it really, people who are struggling, this opens up a whole new dimension or a whole new world because all of a sudden you can step back from yourself and go, oh, hang on, just because I've done this over here my whole life or these patterns, I can actually change that. And that's quite silly to keep doing that. Whereas if you don't have that perspective, you just keep doing the silly things and you've got no awareness that you can do different. And so that is fantastic. But then, once we have that moment and that honeymoon period wears off, we become aware of all our own bullshit. And we'll find that we have quite a lot.
Knee and elbow deep in it.
Yes, exactly. We're suffocating in it. So the actual waking up moment can be quite simple for someone. That can be someone could go to a class and have that experience. They can go into a meditation and they let go of their self and they realize that there's something deeper, and it can happen quite quickly. But the whole idea that that waking up is this moment and then everything's okay gets a lot of people into trouble.
Yeah, it's waking up and realizing everything's not okay and that there's a lot of work to do to then get to okay.
Yeah.
And my clients are hilarious. They'll come and do a 12-week or a 12-month program sometimes. And then they'll go into a maintenance program. And in the maintenance program, they'll be like, I didn't realize how much work there would continue to be. And welcome to personal development. This is you for the rest of your life. It's never ending.
Yeah.
But and I speak to them as well. They come in quite unwoke, for lack of a better term, unaware. Their emotional intelligence isn't being employed. That they've got a lack of self-awareness and a lack of awareness of how they're affecting and impacting on people around them. And they're all living in this illusion that their belief system's creating, and their perception is their reality. And my initial job with everyone is to build rapport and trust and get them comfortable, but then to start breaking down that illusion. And some people experience it quite profoundly, like they realize that it's breaking down and they're like, oh my God, that's all my bullshit. Oh God. And usually ego's heavily involved with it. But once that illusion is broken down, as happened to me, then you can really start working on clearing out that foundation and putting in place lots of healthy things that you don't need that illusion. You can just start observing things as they are instead of how you want them to be or think they should be or need them to be. You can actually live in the reality of what is instead of this fantasized reality that is going to be good for your ego.
Yeah, I think illusion's a good word. So I think it is. It's realizing that it's all been somewhat of an illusion up until this point. And when you say it's mostly ego-based, I think it's all ego-based. And some people will have more resistance than others to seeing that illusion for what it is, because it's hard. Like if you hold on to something, like I've worked with a lot of people who've had issues like they've been sports people or athletes, and they either have an injury that curtails their career, or they just get to an age where they're about to retire and they go through this massive existential crisis. And that's because they don't realize that it's all been an illusion anyway. But they've identified so heavily as being this athlete or sports person that when that's taken away, they're like, who am I? I have no idea who I am now.
I've had it with athletes, but I've had it more so with business people and businessmen who heavily identify as being a CEO or the boss of this company or whatever. And they reach retirement age. And the stats around blokes dying after retiring are huge because they've got no purpose anymore. They've linked their life destiny and their life purpose so heavily with building materialistic things and being successful in business that once they can't do it, they're like, oh, I'll just fall off the perch.
Yep. Happens. I've seen, that with men, also with women who mental health issues that have been kind of just held at bay for maybe decades. All of a sudden the dam breaks when we get to retirement age. A lot of women who are just obviously want to give and help, and a lot of women lose themselves in that with family or with work and that kind of jazz. Then all of a sudden kids are grown up, don't need your help anymore. You get retirement age from work, and now it's like, now all of that stuff that I've been trying to distract myself with for years, it's right here. And I've got this all this time now that it's all starting to come up. This is starting to happen with people on a smaller scale in isolation at the minute. It's like, now that we can't stay busy all the time and just do and distract ourselves, all of those feelings that we've been either consciously or subconsciously trying to suppress will start coming up to the surface, and they can be really uncomfortable for people.
I see it, as I said, men at retirement, but women, I see it more when the chickens fly the coop, when the kids leave home and
empty nest.
At about sometimes 13, more about 14, 15, 16. Kids are so codependent on their parents, and they at that age they start to try and gain a bit of independence, and usually it's done in a very unhealthy, toxic way, and fuck off, leave me alone. The parents try and hold on to the kids. No, you're not going anywhere. We want to keep control, and instead of looking at it like an evolutionary stage and understanding and coming at it from a place of empathy and compassion, working together, there's usually just fuck it. When the kid, I see so many mums holding onto their kids to try and keep that codependent relationship in place, but it switches from the kid being codependent on the mum to then the mum being codependent on the kid, because all they're identifying as, I am a mother, you are my life's work. Like the husband, is codependent on his role at work or whatever.
And you'll find when people, if you get people to, how would you introduce yourself, you get to find out where they're identified at. So it's like, hey, I'm
Jamie's mum.
I'm Mary, I'm mother of 2 beautiful kids. Or it's like, I'm Sam, I run a company over here, blah, blah. And you'll see where people's ideas are at. Yeah, you're running into there with that codependent with the mother, mainly with sons, the Oedipal mother, which is a Freud term. And we saw it a lot dealing with addicts whose, mums would bring them in. And a lot of the time it happened when there was a split early on with the husband and wife, and he wasn't in the picture anymore. And then the son starts to somewhat fill the role of the husband. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so this gets really interesting, because then ends up they grow up to an age, and they could be mid-20s or even in their 30s, still at home. Mum's still doing all the washing, cooking, and all that kind of jazz, giving them money when they need it. Meanwhile, they're not working; they're doing drugs, and it's just massively codependent. And then the mother will come in and say, "Well, he just needs to change." And I'm like, why the fuck would he change? Like, he gets to sit at home, do drugs, gets money for nothing, doesn't have to work, gets his washing done, gets his food made. What? That's a great deal. Why would he leave? And then if the son, there's this episode of South Park, right? Of all things, when we're talking about deep dynamics between mother and father, I bring up a South Park episode, but it illustrates this beautifully. It's an episode where, the dog whisperer, Caesar Milan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So it's one where Cartman's mum, so obviously Cartman and his mum, Cartman's just a shit of a kid and yelling at his mum all the time, blah, 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 and she just can't handle it anymore. So she brings in Caesar Milan to train Cartman. And so he comes in and, whenever Cartman arcs up, he goes "Tss," and like kicks him in the side and everything. And over time, he actually changes Cartman's behaviour, like he would on an episode of Dog Whisperer. And so next thing, Cartman's doing his homework. He's dressed nice. He's like, "Oh, mother, would you like, something for dinner?" and all that. And there's this really beautiful moment where the mum, I think Caesar's, first of all, the mum's trying to crack on to Caesar Milan the whole time he's there trying to train, right? Because the dad's not there, so there's that dynamic missing. He just doesn't want a bar of it. Anyway, he leaves. And then she goes around, she's looking around the house to clean up stuff. And then she's like, "Oh, honey, did you want to, some of that ice cream or whatever?" He goes, "No, I don't want ice cream. I would want to eat better," and all that kind of jazz. And she's trying to find something that he's done wrong. And she ends up encouraging him to go back to his old ways. Because all of a sudden now she's completely lost that codependent relationship. Someone's become independent, even when it's the son. And a lot of women say they want their son or daughter, whoever, to be independent, but when it happens, they really struggle with it. Because like you said, that dynamic changes from dependency one way to dependency the other way. But I encourage people to watch that episode.
They both enable each other then, and it's just like enabling, just to stay in those comfort zones, and because it's working for everyone. So
it's working.
Why would it change?
Yeah, and it's very hard because oftentimes the mother, there becomes a real split there, because part of them is like, I need them to stop doing drugs and all this kind of jazz, but at the same time that it does bring comfort that they're there, and are filling that role for them. So yeah, interesting. There's also talk about this mothers and that kind of thing and losing in that identity. There's a beautiful movie that I recommend for a lot of clients. It's called The Shift. And Dr. Wayne Dyer is in it. It's a movie I think P made and everything, but it's not a documentary. It's like just these stories about these different dynamics and families, and it's really beautiful movie. And one of them is this family, the husband, wife, 2 kids, and it's really about the mum. And they go away, and it's all about how she has really lost herself in the role of a mum and also looking after the husband and all that kind of jazz. And they go away for a weekend to this beautiful place, and she just wants to start painting because she used to paint all the time, and it starts just wanting to pour out of her. And one night she's in the bathroom feverishly drawing these trees that she saw during the day and feels a bit guilty doing it. She's trying to hide away. And the next day they're walking, and she's standing there, and they're like, the husband and kids are like, come on. And she's staring at these trees, and she goes, "I'd love to paint these trees." And then her 2 sons go, "What are you talking about, Mum? You don't paint." Because they've never, ever seen her paint because she's put it away since they were born. And she has this real epiphany and realization that her own kids have no idea who their mum is because she got too involved in just being a mum.
Well, do you ever really know who anyone is? Like, because we're constantly changing and evolving. So it just makes me think about golf. Drumming was my first love, and I played the drums in high school and carried on with that for many years. And then I stopped playing it because travelled and hard to lug a drum kit around and whatnot. And then I found golf, and so I took up golf, and that was great. And then recently, I haven't touched a golf club since we won that event, that charity event.
Oh, really? Well, if you're only as good as your last game, then that's a good one to finish up on.
I've gone out on top. I got an eagle, and we won by a stroke, and I sunk that 30-footer winding on that last hole.
I will never forget.
So, and I've sold my golf membership.
Right.
And because there was another shift, it was just like, okay, I wanted to go back to drumming. I wanted to return to drumming, but. And we go back to this woke thing. That's similar in my friends that I've had for a long period of time still refer to the old Nick and the new Nick. Like the shift was that profound for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the old Nick was, Typhoon Nick, and went blew through Thailand. And as I said, I was talking about watching Californication, and definitely the Hank Moody character resonated with the old Nick. And ironically, my nickname used to be Hank. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Hank the Tank.
And as I said, he was just a fucking loose unit, and he was the life of the party, and just very carefree, so carefree. And this version of me has become a lot more caring, and that version of me was very shallow. I was still kind and considerate and thoughtful and everything, but this version of me is so much more considerate and thoughtful and much deeper. It was like I broke through, a sheet of ice, and there's this, just this depth was created. So I don't know how else to explain it. Mm-hmm. But part of me still, I think I've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, and my focus now is on trying to find a balance between that carefree Nick outside of work, because the work that we do, we get very conditioned. I don't know about you, but I'm so tuned in to people's thinking styles. It's like a massage therapist just, feeling someone's body going, oh, there's a knot, there's a knot, there's a knot. That's what we need to work on. That's what we need to work on. It's a very unconscious thing. It's like a florist, constantly creating these arrangements and then going out for dinner and just can't help themselves, and they just sit down, oh, what's that floral arrangement? Like, oh, that's wrong, that's out of place. So it happens with everyone and whatever, but especially in our field, people don't like being analysed at a party.
Yeah. It's a bit different to have a go at someone's flowers when you start talking about. So I think, what trauma have you had? Or it's a bit more personal. I have the same thing. It's hard to turn off.
Yeah, I had a mate down at the pub one day. We were all down there having a beer, just sitting at a counter meal, and all the boys were whinging about their wives, as they tend to do. And I kept going, oh, but have you actually sort of thought about where she's coming from, or have you actually communicated to her? But I went into problem-solving mode because I could hear what I perceived to be suffering, and my why is I've just changed it recently. My why was to create as big of a positive ripple effect as I can in the world, but I've realised in the last week that was too beige. It was too big. It was too utopian. It was everyone was involved in that, and not everyone wants to be involved in that. And my mates down at the pub said afterwards, one of them pulled me over and goes, mate, can you just let us fucking have a whinge? Can we just have a beer and a whinge? That's all we want. We don't want to solve it. There's no real problem. It's just what we do. And I'm like, right, so I've lost a lot of connection with people through being too invasive, I suppose. Being too woke, being too aware, being too all-seeing and all-knowing. And imagine going out with me. I don't, especially like reconnaissance soldier, so trained to observe and everything. And then as a psychotherapist, it's not a good recipe, man. So I've changed my why to, I still want to create a bigger positive ripple effect than I can, but only with people who are looking for it. So I'm shifting out of being a therapist and like giving up golf. I'm going back to my first love, which was being a healer. So I'm more a healer and a teacher now for people who are looking for healing and looking for some knowledge, instead of being this therapist who's going to analyze the shit out of everyone and, blah, blah, blah. So really trying to compartmentalize work Nick and non-work Nick, and have the non-work Nick be more like more like Hank, carefree, fun, just easy going, But then work Nick, and work Nick is the woke bloke.
Yeah.
Does that all make sense?
Makes complete sense. Yeah, so, and I think it did start from the place where you said we're not really any of it at the end of the day, and I think that's the place to get to, where you're not attached to any of these roles, because we're not. We're different around everyone. You know, when I,
But you're gonna have the freedom to shift in and out of your different personas and your different energies and everything. So, you know, when I'm with my girlfriend and her family and her friends and whatever, the last thing I want them to feel is like I'm analysing them, or I'm you know, putting all their words through my radar detector and ding. Oh, that's you know, I don't want people to feel that around me. I just want people to relax and, you know, enjoy my company. So that's my you know, next work in progress is doing that. So, but I can do it now because I'm aware of it and I'm accepting of it, and I can actually change it now through changing that why, because that belief was what was driving so much of it. I must create as big as a positive ripple effect as I can. That's just like a atom bomb going off. You know, everything is going to be included in that. Where if I can actually say, I want to help reduce suffering and help people to be happier, but only people that are looking for it, that's much more contained. It's much more specific.
Yeah, and I think that really helps with that being able to shift and everything, because if you have that first one, then like with the guys, like as soon as you see problem, it's like bang, here's solution. But like you said, the overarching thing around that energy was just, we just want to complain to each other.
And the thing with being woke is not everyone operates on that deep level, you know, so it's hard to connect with family and friends who operate more on that surface level. And neither one is better or worse or good or bad, but it's
just different.
Yeah, it's about maintaining the connection. So I want to go down to the pub with my mates and just sit there and, you know, have a whinge about everything, and yeah, fine. But when I'm at work, that's where I can tap back into that depth of me.
And it's actually better for us as well to do that, because, you know, I found, you know, just before we left, it was around my birthday, we had some going away drinks as well. And we went out to the pub, then I went back to a mate's joint, some old mates who I hadn't seen in a while, and just had some beers, listened to music, and it was beautiful to just let go of that part of me that wants to like delve into problems and everything. And after that, I felt like my cup was full, like that, a different part of my cup. I was listening to Ram Dass yesterday, and he was talking about this. Talking about his whole thing's about becoming nobody. So you're not attached to any role, any personality. You're just. And he says, he says, I don't know what I am, but he goes, I'll become whatever people's projection is of me. So he goes, he said he was giving a retreat the week before, so people were coming to see Ram Dass, and like someone saw him and went, Ram Dass, and he said, yes. And then he goes, but then someone else he saw was an old friend, went, hey Dick, and he went, hey. And he goes, see, for the person who went, hey, Dick, I wouldn't go, yes. He goes, I'm none of it, but I'm just sort of whatever people's projection are, that's what comes out of me when I'm around them. Because we know that intuitively. We know we're different around our family, around our partner, around our friends at work. We're different. We're completely different. So I think it's just not being attached to any of it.
And I used to struggle with that because I used to think it was a bad thing. I don't know where I got this belief from, that it was bad I felt like I was a chameleon, and I was so adaptable. I could adapt to any situation. I could be, here and there and there. And, you know, and I fit in everywhere. And I thought, oh, this is terrible, because if I fit in anywhere, then I'm changing for everybody. And I really wish that I had have stayed that way. And I think I'm trying to return to that, just you know, freely shifting into whatever I need to be in whatever circumstance it is. Yeah.
But then I think, we're very similar paths, me and you. I think I've struggled with the same thing, and I still get the thoughts. Like I'll be with my mates, and then the thought will come up, and it'll be like I'll say something, and I'm like, yeah, that's coming from this pattern with happened with your dad, blah blah. But then I'm like, so the thought happens, but I'm not. I'm like, shut up and just enjoy.
Stick the filter on. Stick the filter on.
So I think it's just not being attached to any of it, because when we're not attached to it, we're not going to be really depressed when it goes away, like we spoke about with the athletes or the business people. The more attached we are to that, the more suffering we're going to go into when that goes away, because it's all going to go away. You know, you see it with Instagram influencers, right? You know, like I've got and don't, you know, I'm not judging. I follow some on my page, you know, tits and an ass. Like, it's fantastic, right? I have some feeds that I'm just looking at asses all day. It's fantastic. But if I'm identified that that's who I am and have my looks, or not just the amount of followers, but my looks, because I'm actually getting all this attention from my looks, that shit's gonna go away. And the people that don't accept that are the ones that start then getting surgery to like crazy extents, where you see the person, they don't even look like a fucking human anymore, because they can't accept that this part they identified with was going to change, so they just refuse to get old.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is that everything's impermanent. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically.
What a fucking revelation. And it's, everything does. Everything has an expiry date. And if you are so dependent on having that to, as your identity or whatever it is, then you're just going to set yourself up for a massive fall down the track.
Yeah.
Whether it's your beauty or whether it's your job or whether it's your kids or whatever it is. Yeah.
So then it's like, you're like, well, where do I identify? And it's like, well, you identify with that consciousness inside of you. Like, and different religions, different spiritual practices will have ideas of what that is. You can call it spirit, soul, Shakti, whatever you want to call it. But basically, if you say to someone, are you in there? Hello, are you there? They'll be like, yeah, I'm in here. And it's like, were you in there when you were 5, playing your first Vic kick or game of footy? It's like, yeah, I was in there. And were you in there when you finished high school, when you were 17 or 18? Were you in there? I'm like, yeah, I was in there. And if you look in the mirror now, are you in there? It's like, yeah, I'm in here. So there's that part of you's in there, and it's been with you your entire life, and it's just sort of watching the whole shitstorm that happens. And if I identify there, then all of what happens out here, which not just the outside world, but me and my emotions, my thoughts, my physical body, my work, you can just accept that all of that has changed throughout your entire life, and it will continue to do so.
I had a friend who's a videographer come and interview some clients just to get some client stories. I didn't want testimonials or anything, but these people they kept asking, how can I help other people? And I said, well, by telling and sharing your story, by being vulnerable, that'll give other people permission to perhaps seek help and open up. And the first client that did it was amazing. But she said something at the end, and they're like, oh, would you recommend this to other people doing this kind of work? Would you recommend it to other people? And she goes, well, of course I would, because it's life-changing, but it's only really for people who are open to change. She said, it's like anything. If you're not open to change, then you're going to hate it, and you're not going to enjoy it, and you're going to detest it and fight it. And I think that's where people become woke, if we want to keep using that term. There's an awareness that we can improve, we can evolve, we can grow, we can let go, we can change, we can do stuff. And I never want to be, those gnarly old dudes down at the pub that, back in my day, and remember this, and reliving the glory days. I don't, that's probably my greatest fear.
Me too.
And it's not a judgment. They're very good people, or whatever. But it's just, for me, coming into an understanding that there's more to this existence is. I think woke is just becoming aware or becoming conscious. But I think we need to be careful, because as I've found, we can become too conscious. We can become too aware. We can see every little grain of sand, and that in itself can become problematic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That I even struggle with like taking pictures and stuff. And I, like, when we moved over here, we obviously put some stuff in storage, but I have to say to Mal, I'm like, you have to let me know what we're keeping, because I'll fucking throw out everything. Because it's like, probably too much that way, to be honest. Yeah. But it's like, I don't know, even like photos and stuff, I'm like, it's implying that in future, I'm going to be in the present moment, and I'm not going to be happy with that present moment. So I'll have to go back to the past to see when I was happy in a present moment to try and rekindle some of those feelings, which I'm not a big fan of the energy behind that. My goal is for my present moment, because it's like we're on a wave. It's the one wave, the present moment, that goes throughout time. That's all we're living. It's just one big present moment. But my, I suppose, goals for myself is to be just deepening and deepening and deepening my connection with that present moment as I go through life. So it's my prediction that I'm in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I'm more in love with the present moment then. So I'm less going to want to have to refer back to the past.
Is it a referring back to the past though, or is it just an acknowledgement that there was a past that did exist, and there was a version of you that did exist? I hear what you're saying with that, but for me, I love taking photos, and it's more an artistic endeavor for me, so it's more a hobby. But with photos, it is just like we had my uncle organised a Zoom Easter dinner, so all the family's all over the place, and he started, his thing is to play these slideshows, and it was amazing to look back and see photos of my grandparents when they were getting married and my cousins when they were kids and all this sort of thing. So I think, I'm very much all about staying in the moment as well and being present, not ruminating in the past or what we think should have happened, or not living in the future and trying to create a future out of fear, but staying very much here. But I do enjoy acknowledging that there was a past, and it's like we do have to create a future. We do have to envisage a future. And a lot of my clients discuss this with me, and they go, Nick, where's the point? What's the difference between being anxious of the future and preparing for it? Like, you guys have moved to Thailand. You didn't just turn up in Thailand and go, right, and let's live in this moment and find you didn't. There had to be some sort of construct for you to shift from point A to point B. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that with the future. I think we can do a similar thing with the past, and it's just an acknowledgement. It's just we don't need to go back there to regain that feeling of what happened, but it's just it's a fond memory.
Yeah. Look, if I'm somewhere and people start pulling out old photos, I'm the first one to go, give us a look. I'll have a look at them. I'm just very far down the extreme end of I'm not going to do that myself. Because nothing breaks my heart more this was what was so good about the Tool Speak. We started with Tool when I went to the Tool concert, because they're very, very strict, no phones.
Yeah.
Right? Very, very strict.
They want you to experience it in the moment.
Exactly. And it was funny because what they do, and they do this at all concerts, for the last song, they'll say, okay, now you can get your phones out if you want pictures and that. And it just breaks my heart because every single person, and they watch the whole song on their screen. And I'm like, that is just, it's so depressing for me. And I see people doing that with their lives. They're just like, I go through the day.
That's depressing for you because you've got a belief that they shouldn't be doing that. So you're imposing your belief onto people.
True.
Instead of just letting them be. So you're not actually being in the moment because you're focused on them.
Okay. I know. I'll take that on. I'll take that on. But that's why I admit I'm too extreme down the one end, because I literally won't take photos of anyone.
And I spoke before about Hank Nick was down there, and then Woke Nick is up there. So we are operating off these spectrums. I think both you and I have spoken about it. And I think what's coming up to the surface is balance is key for anything. Balance is critical. It's if you're not in the middle, if you're up, if you're only about work or only about family, you're going to have to go a long way to reach that other end of the spectrum. So if we can be in balance, like the old seesaws when you go surfing on the wooden ones in playgrounds when they were still healthy and legal, you'd find that balance point. You could just move up and down. And Einstein says it perfectly. Balance isn't just staying in the one spot in perfect stillness. It's like riding a bicycle. You've got to
counterbalance either way.
So okay, I'm woke at work, and then I'm Hank with family and friends, and
I don't know if we want to be Hank, do we?
Well, not Hank, but that version of me that was nicknamed Hank. I'm not referring to Californication.
Okay.
Hank there. Nick with the nickname Hank. So I'm pre-woke out there and just more surfacey, I suppose, and carefree and blasé, laissez-faire, but at work I am tuned in, I am honed in, because that's what people are paying me to be. So
Yeah.
if I'm at a dinner party, people aren't paying me to pick up on their, thinking errors and emotional disturbances and limiting beliefs and all sort of stuff. And so there's no point in me doing it.
Yeah. Good. Back to the chameleon.
Back to the chameleon. Yeah, because I didn't. It was weird. I didn't enjoy it at the time because of a belief that I thought it was wrong, or I thought I shouldn't be doing it. But now, having, I suppose, experienced a bit more, I'm like, that was actually a really great way to live.
Yeah.
Because I was being adaptable. I was so flexible. I could fit in anywhere, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think for me, like I'm at a similar place, and I think for me, there's just very subtle shifts. So before, I think I could fit into any situation and I could just go into it. But there would be still a strong sense of my personal self involved. So I'll blend in and I'll be who I want to be, but I might even, say things or not say things that I wouldn't normally, just so I could be that chameleon. Because underlying that, and we spoke about this last week, was a belief that people need to like me and that I have to be loved. So now it's like I'm a bit different. So now my goal is to try and be the chameleon and fit in, but just letting go of that personal self. So we just sort of be with whatever that present situation is and not thinking about it referred to ourselves.
Well, yeah, if I'm in a situation now, then I'm not going to be trying to fit in. And I think that's the difference, just freely fitting in and trying to fit in. There's a big difference between the two.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, I was definitely trying to fit in. When I left the army, it was definitely just fitting in. I was more free and just shift in and out of these spaces. I was very malleable. I was Bruce Lee, be the water, be the cup. I was very much that. So I think it's important to understand the difference between trying to fit in and just allowing yourself to be there as you need to be there.
Yep. Beautiful, mate. All right, let's wrap it up.
Cool.
Stay woke, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, but not too woke.
But not too woke. Stay a little bit woke and lots woke in some situations, a little bit woke in other situations.
Find the balance.
And it's all going to be individual. It's all going to be individual, but you'll get there. Guys, shoot us through any questions, any topics you'd like us to talk about. DM us on Instagram, Woke Blokes Podcast, or Mind Fit, or the Centre for Healing. And we'd love to hear what you guys want us to talk about, and we will do that. Nico, pleasure as always, mate. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.